Hideo Kojima has said that Guillermo del Toro's 2001 film The Devil's Backbone proved inspirational to him while creating games like 2015's The Phantom Pain. This is a brief video exploring the film and its influence on MGS5. Some minor spoilers to follow. Let's begin.
You can see the friendship right here.
We don't understand shit. But once you have a few, karaoke is fantastic. And the beauty is that we come, I think that we share that link of culture, but we also share sort of a passion for melancholic ideas, and at the same time, those are executed in big action genres. So there's a lot of good connections. He sings a lot, but eats very little. I sing little and eat a lot, so it's a perfect match.
Hideo, have there been any moments, or I'm sure there have been in Guillermo's films, that sort of speak to why you respect him so much as a director and a creator?
全部好きなんですけど、デルトロさんの映画は。
I like all Guillermo's movies.
でデビルス・バックボーンの少年の幽霊がいるんですけど、水で溺れた。それが非常に怖くて悲しくて優しくて、美しいというか、そういう感覚のホラーというか、その映画は今までなかったと思うんで、そこがデルトロさんの、作品の魅力だと思いますよね。
And also in The Devil's Backbone, there's this ghost of this kid that gets drawn, and this ghost is scary and sad and tender and in a way beautiful all at the same time. And there was not a movie like this before. It's something really special that for me, it defines a lot of what Guillermo makes.
The Devil's Backbone is set during the Spanish Civil War. It follows the story of a boy named Carlos and other war orphans like him living in an orphanage run by Dr. Cesares and the matron, Carmen. Also living and working there are the young girl Conchita and the orphanage's former member, Jacinto. Shortly before Carlos's arrival, on a dark and fateful night, two shocking events transpired. A bomb landed in the schoolyard without detonating. At around the same time, one of the kids, Santi, went missing. It seems, based on the editing of the film, that Santi was killed by one of the other kids, Jaime, but that will turn out to be a mere expression of Jaime's grief as the only witness to the murder of Santi, and the only one aware of its true perpetrator. Right away, you can tell while watching this film, if you're a fan of MGS5 or Kojima's games generally, that The Devil's Backbone proved very instrumental to Kojima's own tale of phantoms, trauma, and revenge from beyond the grave. The movie reinvents the idea of a ghost story, poetically interposing an actual ghost story with multiple different kinds of phantoms. After all, the film opens by asking us, in a poetic sense, what is a phantom? The central theme here is of people and things who in some sense remain here on Earth long after their time has come, whether literally or metaphorically, whether that's people who can't move on from some terrible trauma, to actual ghosts, to orphans who survived their families' untimely deaths, to those alive today haunted by the will of loved ones that they know died with their will unfulfilled, who take on that will as the dead person's proxy, sometimes as their proxy of revenge. But another way that The Devil's Backbone presages the phantom pain relates to the theme of war, of the role war plays in human nature, and both works actually draw on this point from a major literary influence, William Golding's 1954 novel Lord of the Flies. Yes, both The Devil's Backbone and MGSV allude to the novel on many different registers, from pigs and flies and fire to children, war orphans who commune with the dead. With spoiling the film as little as possible, we also have, like in MGS5, in The Devil's Backbone, a doctor who, following a cataclysmic explosion, finds himself becoming more and more phantasmic and violent, contrary to everything that both as a man of science and medical practitioner he believes in, one whose descent into hell, just like in MGS5, gets symbolized by his reflection in a cracked mirror, in just another day in a war that, for him, will remain without end, like one of his not cassette tapes but vinyl records stuck on repeat. And then there is Jacinto, a character that parallels Eli, aka Liquid Snake, who also tries to escape from the fate from the orphanage and the phantom pain he was effectively born into. Not to mention the literal phantom pain of the matron, Carmen, whose missing leg, like her missing husband killed in action, haunts and hurts her every day, which she spends laboring under its awful weight. I'd also bet money that the titular devil's backbone, which refers to an old Spanish superstition that we learn about in a great scene involving unborn babies floating inside amber jars, would directly inspire the BB pods in Kojima's next game following the Phantom Pain, Death Stranding. Even some of the set design for the Devil's Backbone reminds me of Kojima's games. The cellar of the orphanage, to my eyes, kind of resembles the one that we find in Code Talker's mansion in the Phantom Pain, while, though I could be wrong, the orphanage's hallways feel vaguely reminiscent of the hallway featured in the TGS 2014 concept movie for Silent Hills. The ghost of Santi resembles, arguably, aspects of both PT's Lisa and MGS5's Phantom, Skullface, while the undetonated bomb in the foyer strongly reminds me of the trauma-made physically real symbol of Venom Snake's horn. Neither one of them can be removed, and both of them, of course, keep alive the trauma of the night in which they made their holes, the penetrating trauma of the original event. Both MGS5 and The Devil's Backbone depict men becoming demons, not to mention, minor spoiler alert, child soldiers. The pool containing Santi's corpse resembles the ones found in MGS5's Maffinda oil refinery, and the hole in his head resembles the aforementioned horn-torn hole in Punish Venom Snake's head. Subtly, whenever we see Santi, it's as though he's always kind of floating on some plane of existence within that awful water that contains his body. This reminds me of MGS5's Man on Fire, who, whenever active, always burns like molten lava just as he first did the day he died as Yevgeny Volgin at the end of MGS3. But in both MGS5 and The Devil's Backbone, doctors become demons following huge cataclysmic explosions. And Carmen tells us at one point, just like in The Phantom Pain, that though the phantom pain of her dead husband haunts her daily, it provides some kind of secret strength that empowers her to carry out his mission. That scene that gives us the phrase Devil's Backbone, the whole premise of the movie, it's sort of asking what it is that makes a phantom, makes a man a demon. That, of course, parallels, in some ways, Sahelanthropus and the day that weapons learn to walk upright, and that kind of stuff from MGS5. The orphanage is almost like a mother base, with Dr. Cesares and the pegged-legged Carmen resembling to some extent, I suppose, Ocelot and Miller, the caretakers of MGS5's sort of orphanage. The bedroom that the kids stay in, it kind of looks like an infirmary or isolation ward, or prison. And in MGS5, like in The Devil's Backbone, some of the boys run away. While Mother Base may be in the middle of the ocean, and the orphanage is in the middle of a sort of desert, both are non-prisons that nonetheless resemble prisons where there's no escape. Carlos will be given Santi's old bed, which foreshadows that, in some ways, Carlos will be Santi's instrument brought back from the dead for revenge, sort of replacing Santi as his vessel on Earth to some degree, like how Venom Snake replaces Big Boss. There's one illusion where we see the sort of phantom of Santi through the curtain draped next to Carlos's bed. And that, of course, is like in the opening of The Phantom Pain, when, if you look carefully, you can see Ishmael, aka Big Boss's shadow through the curtain next to our bed. As a ghost, Santi uses psychokinesis to do things like make a jug fall and summon Carlos with footprints in the water. This is sort of similar, of course, to the third boy in MGS5. The children call Santi the one who sighs, which of course reminded me of the one who covers and names like that Code Talker bestows on his parasites. The way that the kids call the bomb she reminded me of the boss AI. This big shell that just marks the memory of someone who's died or some awful event. There's one section in the film where two of the kids are sneaking around, and it sort of reminded me of the opening of The Phantom Pain. This is kind of a subtle thing, but at one point Dr. Cesares says, "The war isn't over yet," and that reminded me of "It isn't over yet," of course, the famous catchphrase from MGS. I could be wrong, but the scene where Quiet jumps in to save the medallion for the boys on Mother Base kind of resembles the scene where Carlos has to jump in to save Jaime when he falls into the pool. Another line that stuck with me is one where they say that here in this part of Spain, because of the weather and whatnot, that the dead get stuck halfway to heaven. That just reminded me, of course, of Outer Heaven. The way that the film sort of deceives us into thinking that Jaime is the killer before finding out that he's just plagued with guilt, that sort of reminded me of in The Phantom Pain, where we have repressed memories and the truths sort of resurfacing for Venom Snake by the end. Haunted as both he and Jaime are by the death that they've seen, the things that they've endured. And as a film about orphans, of course, everyone in The Devil's Backbone is in some sense an Ishmael, a biblical name which is synonymous with being an orphan. The line about Jacinto that reminded me the most of Liquid is when he's referred to as a prince without a kingdom. In both The Phantom Pain and The Devil's Backbone, we have the motif of gasoline as sort of symbolizing the explosive danger of a lust for revenge. Both The Phantom Pain and The Devil's Backbone contain scenes of interrogations. I won't show it because I don't want to spoil it, but there's even a scene where somebody's limb is snapped back into joint, like in The Phantom Pain. I could go on, as the parallels and direct allusions to The Devil's Backbone by MGS5 are legion, but I think my point has been made while spoiling the movie as little as possible. I hope I've made clear that any true blue Kojima fan needs to watch The Devil's Backbone, preferably twice. Now go see it if you haven't already. Until next time, boss.